kind of bottoms out around 3 years, that's 401, and 10 years, that's 429. And oddly enough, the 3 month and 4 year rates are lower. Now, even without some other stuff, this is so-called an inverted yield curve. Okay, at least historically speaking, when the yield curve has been inverted, it typically follows with a recession within 1 to 2 years. Not always, but it is a high likelihood. Whether or not this will happen obviously depends upon, given the current current environment, a lot of political stuff. One of the reasons this is happening is all the uncertainty about these tariff wars and stuff. Because if tariff wars do happen, you can bet everything you have we're going to have a recession. Not in the next 6 months, but we're going to have issues. Even if it is not a recession, growth is going to slow down. I mean, people kind of get stuck in tags. If it's not a recession, it's not a bad thing. No. If economy would have grown by 3%, had you not done whatever you have done, it slows down to 1.5. You lost something. Okay, that is a recession, even though we don't call it a recession, which means unemployment is going to go up. Okay, incomes are going to come down, tax revenues are going to come down. What have you? That's what the market tells you. We are concerned. Why would the interest rates go down? In, I mean, as a teaching tool, I'm going to view this as uh, let's think about the expectations theory. At least in the short term, actually, it's not that bad. Longer term, it completely screws up. But in the short term, it's not too bad of a guide because the arbitrage relationships are a lot tighter in the short term. Market says we're concerned either A, future inflation is going to be lower. Oh, given the possible tariff wars, we know that ain't going to happen if those tariff wars happen. Again, I don't particularly care what your political view is on that. I'm not saying I don't care in the sense that I don't give a crap about it. It does not matter what your political view is. We are all entitled to our political views, but there are also economic facts. What happens when you impose tariff? Let's say we decided as a nation that we don't like these ex-Viking guys, okay? And we're going to impose a lot of tariffs because these guys are socialists, believe me. They give a lot of money to their poor and they have high tax rates. Of course, the welfare in Norway is not even close to being below the best state in the United States. All of that is important. But we don't like them for whatever reasons. We decide they have a lot of timber, you know, they get very good fish as well. We're going to impose 200% tariff on Norwegian salmon. That Norwegian salmon from North Atlantic. Oh man, something else. I'm not even a salmon guy. I like that one. Okay. There are a lot of people who like Norwegian salmon over here, right? So what's going to happen? Let's assume, one Norwegian salmon is $50 right now. We're imposing a 200% tariff. Do you think those guys are going to say we'll still keep selling it at 50? We're going to eat the cost. No, they're going to say I'm going to start selling it to 150. What's going to happen to the demand for Norwegian salmon? It's going to come down. The price is not going to be 150 because there's less demand, but it's not going to be 50 either. It's going to be somewhere between the two. So effectively, as consumers, you are paying the tax. Even though technically speaking, it is a Norwegian exporter that is paying that $100 a salmon to the US Treasury. That's just the identity of the money. But who's paying for that? You are. I am. So that thing is going to be, I'm just making it up, $100 a pound, $100 a salmon. Well, now extend this. We import a lot of cars from uh, Mexico and Canada, right? We're going to charge them tariffs. What's going to happen to the cost of those cars? You can say, okay, I won't buy the Canadian cars. Do you know what's going to happen to the prices of the US produced cars? Let's say Canadians are going to simply say, we don't care. We're not going to sell you any cars. And you want to buy a new car. You're going to go get a Chevy Durango. For whatever reason, I don't know. So you really think that prices of Chevy Durango are going to stay the same? No. Why? There's nothing wrong with that. Our American auto producers happen to be capitalists. Okay? It's their business. If there is more demand for American made cars, prices of American made cars are going to go up. That means, independent of your political view, whether you love Trump or hate Trump, if tariff war happens, inflation is going to go up. So we know that's not about inflation because we know inflation is going to go up. If we knew that inflation was going to be 1% next year, that is a normal pattern. Why? Because shorter term interest rates are lower, which means it's a lot better to borrow now and roll later compared to borrow for longer term, which pushes longer term rates down. But we know inflation is not the issue. That means people are concerned about recession. What happens in recessions? Demand for things go down. If you think that you are more likely to be unemployed next year, are you more likely or less likely to buy a new car? Less likely. It probably won't change how many sodas you have per day because, at the end of the day, who cares, right? You can go to Costco and get a can of Coke for 25 cents. If you're dumb enough to buy it from Speedway, I have nothing to say to you anyway. But the economy is driven by the modern economy. Two major things. One is durable goods, services, and small businesses. Some of you, I mean, not in this class, but some of my students are general business majors, independent of what I think of that major. A lot of them think that they just want to learn a little bit about a lot of some of the business. They want to develop their business. Fine, no problem. Are you less likely or more likely to be able to develop a business if demand for things are down? Less. So small business engine is not there. Durable goods stuff is not there. Consumer demand is not there. That's going to create either a recession or a big time slowdown. That's what market is telling you. We are concerned that economy is not going to do that well between now and over about 3 years. And one of the major reasons why it's actually turning up, I'm going to come to that. And this is the nominal yield curve. Let's actually also look at the real yield curve. I don't think we have short-term stuff on that, but let's see. Oh, this thing is, after 5 years. Now, one of the better theories is about actually thinking about the factors that go into a yield curve. Now, when we look at that nominal yield curve, it's real plus expected inflation, right? Technically speaking, 1 plus nominal is 1 plus real times 1 plus expected inflation, the so-called Fisher equation. Even if I have a yield curve for nominal, I'm going to start with the real. As you have seen, in fact, I'm not going to do a chart of it, but let's look at the number. The real yield, the yield after you account for inflation. Remember, these are completely inflation protected to the extent that consumer price index represents the inflation you are experiencing. Since we cannot index it for everybody, we have to pick something, and that's the number. For 5 years, you demand a compensation of 1.61. Okay, but for 30 years, you demand a compensation of 231.